World News program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Mariam Zian, to the headlines. Algeria expresses its astonishment at the French restrictive measures on the movement of people, affirming that it will respond firmly to any action that harms its interests, warning that French provocations will have severe consequences. Coming up next, a potential breakthrough in the prisoner exchange crisis between the resistance and Israeli forces. Hamas announces an agreement to delay the release of Palestinian prisoners, confirming that it has not received any proposals regarding negotiations for the second phase. And international condemnation of Morocco's plans and violations in Western Sahara emerges during high-level discussions at the UN Human Rights Council. The Polisario Front renews its denunciation of France's support for Morocco's expansionist policies. Hello and welcome back to the details of our program. First, Algeria has voiced its surprise and shock over France's decision to impose movement and entry restrictions on Algerian nationals holding special travel documents that exempt them from visa requirements. In a statement, the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized that the government had not been informed of these measures, as required under the provisions of the Algerian-French Agreement on mutual visa exemption for holders of diplomatic or service passports.
The Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of the French Republic has stated that restrictive measures on movement and entry into the French territory have been imposed on Algerian nationals holding special travel documents that exempt them from visa requirements. In this regard, the Algerian government expresses its astonishment and surprise at this announcement, of which it was not informed in any way, as stipulated in Article 8 of the Algerian-French Agreement on reciprocal visa exemption for holders of diplomatic or service passports.
The statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs added that Algerian authorities are not aware of any such restrictive measures, except for two cases, one of which the French authorities have expressed regret over, while the other remains the subject of a request for clarification.
The Algerian authorities are not aware of any such restrictive measures except for two cases recorded recently. In response to Algeria's inquiry, the French authorities expressed regret over the first case, describing it as an isolated incident due to a dysfunction in the chain of command. As for the second, which occurred more recently, it remains under a similar request for clarification submitted to the French authorities.
The Algerian Foreign Ministry described these measures as yet another link in a long series of provocations against Algeria, stressing that the country will respond to any action that harms its interests.
The announcement of these measures without notifying the Algerian state constitutes yet another episode in a long series of provocations, threats and harassment directed against Algeria. However, these measures will have no impact on our country, which will not yield to them in any way. On the contrary, Algeria will respond to any action harming its interests with reciprocal, strict and immediate measures.
And in the same context, the Algerian Foreign Ministry statement emphasized that Algeria has become the focus of internal French political disputes, warning that this approach, which is drawing in members of the French government, could have intended or unintended consequences for Algerian-French relations.
Algeria has seemingly become the target of internal French political quarrels where all kinds of dirty political maneuvers are permitted in a competition instigated, directed and commanded by the far right. This dynamic, which is drawing in not only French political forces but also members of the French government, will have enforcing consequences for all aspects and dimensions of Algerian-French relations.
The Algerian Council of Nations announced the immediate suspension of its relations with the French Senate, including the Parliamentary Cooperation Protocol between the two councils from 2015. A statement issued by the Council's office clarified that it strongly condemns and denounces the visit of the President of the French Senate to the occupied city of Laayoune in the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, considering the visit as aligning with colonial policies and with the pro-Makhzen stance that opposes international legitimacy.
The Bureau of the Council of the Nation strongly condemns and denounces the visit of the Speaker of the French Senate to the occupied city of Laayoune in the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and rejects it with all its justifications and objectives. It considers the visit a blatant challenge and a grave bias, and an alignment with colonial policies and the Moroccan thesis that run counter international legitimacy and the United Nations charters. As a result, the Bureau of the Council of the Nation, headed by its Speaker Mr. Saleh Goujil, holds the French side responsible for the consequences of this irresponsible, provocative, and exhibitionist visit. The Bureau announces the immediate suspension of its relations with the French Senate, including the Parliamentary Cooperation Protocol signed between the two councils on September 8, 2015.
And Algeria renewed its demands for France to fully assume its international responsibilities by rehabilitating and cleaning up the nuclear test sites in the Algerian desert. Speaking at the high-level disarmament conference in Geneva, Lounes Maghraman, Secretary General of Algeria's Foreign Ministry, stated that large areas of the desert still suffer from the effects of nuclear explosions, while the former colonial power has not addressed the resulting toxic waste.
Algeria renews its call for the party responsible for these nuclear tests to fully assume its international responsibilities by taking on the burden of rehabilitating the nuclear test sites, cleansing them from their toxic nuclear waste, compensating the victims, and ceasing to continue evading responsibility while downplaying the repercussions of this humanitarian disaster. Vast areas of the Algerian desert continue to suffer from the effects of the explosions carried out by French colonialism on our lands up until today, due to the serious illnesses and physical disabilities resulting from the high radiation levels, at a time when the colonial power itself did not bother to clean up the waste generated by these tests.
Algeria condemned Morocco's human rights violation in Western Sahara. Speaking at the 58th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Lounes Maghraman, Secretary General of Algeria's Foreign Ministry, urged the Council to document these abuses and reactivate human rights missions in the region. He reaffirmed Algeria's support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and called on the UN to intensify efforts to resume negotiations for a mutually acceptable political solution.
I take this opportunity to denounce the systematic violations of human rights and international humanitarian law in the Western Sahara region by the Moroccan occupation, calling on the Human Rights Council through all its mechanisms to document these violations and to reactivate the technical missions of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to Western Sahara. My country reaffirms its unwavering support for the right of the brotherly Sahrawi people to self-determination and ending the occupation imposed on their land. My country urged the United Nations to intensify its efforts through the personal envoy of the Secretary General for Western Sahara, Mr. Stéphane de Mistura, to enable the two parties at issue to resume the process of direct negotiations to reach a political solution acceptable to both sides as part of the international legitimacy.
The Secretary General of the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs affirmed that Algeria considers the promotion and protection of human rights a top priority, emphasizing the organization and launch of numerous reform programs and workshops across all sectors and levels in recent times. He reiterated Algeria's commitment to continue its constructive cooperation with the Human Rights Council and its various mechanisms.
My country considers the promotion and protection of human rights a top priority. Since its independence, it has worked on strengthening the institutions and mechanisms that ensure the respect of fundamental rights and freedoms for all its citizens. This is a field that has seen remarkable and significant progress since the election of Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune as President of the Republic. This progress is manifested through the organization and launch of numerous programs and reform workshops across all sectors and levels. Mr. Chair, in reaffirming its commitment to and support for human rights and enhancing bilateral cooperation, With the High Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, my country has decided to double its financial contribution to the office's budget for 2025 to meet its needs and support its efforts in carrying out the tasks entrusted to it.
And now, moving on to developments in occupied Palestine, the Islamic resistance movement Hamas revealed that an agreement was achieved or reached to resolve the problem of delaying the release of Palestinian prisoners who were supposed to be released in the last batch last Saturday. Hamas added in a statement on Wednesday that the agreement includes releasing these prisoners simultaneously with the bodies of Israeli prisoners who were agreed to be handed over during the first phase.
تم التوافق مع الأشقاء في مصر على حل إشكالية تأخير الاحتلال إطلاق سراح.
An agreement was reached with our brothers in Egypt to resolve the problem of the occupation's delay in releasing the 7th batch of Palestinian prisoners according to the ceasefire agreement, so that they will be released with the simultaneous release of the bodies of 4 Zionist hostages, as well as the release of the equivalent number of women and children who were arrested after October 7th in the Gaza Strip. There are clear guarantees, and the occupation is required to abide by what is agreed upon. We're always moving with the mediators to oblige the occupation to abide by all the terms of the agreement, whether the exchange process or the relief and humanitarian aspect.
The spokesman for the Islamic resistance movement Hamas, Abdul Latif al-Qanoua, said that the movement did not receive any proposal regarding the second phase of the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip, despite its readiness in moving towards it to complete all the stages. Al-Qanoua added in a press statement on Wednesday that the resistance will release the 7th batch of prisoners with the delivery of Zionist bodies.
The Egyptian mediators have guaranteed this, and we have committed to them and keen to complete the agreement, consolidate it, and oblige the occupation to abide by it. The movement has not been presented with any proposal regarding the second phase, despite our readiness for it and our seriousness in moving towards it to complete all stages of the agreement.
And Algeria has emphasized the need to strengthen and reform multilateral international mechanisms, free from politicization and selectivity or double standards. Speaking at the high-level segment of the 58th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Secretary General of Algeria's Foreign Ministry Lounès Maghraman reiterated Algeria's call for continued international support for the ceasefire agreement and its implementation.
تنعقد جلستنا هذه في سياق مثقل بالتحديات والتعقيدات.
Takes place amid complex challenges, underscoring the need to reform multilateral mechanisms free from politicization, selectivity, or double standards. A principle Algeria upholds, especially as a member of the UN Security Council and Human Rights Council. We express deep concern over the worsening humanitarian crisis in the occupied Palestinian territories due to the ongoing Israeli aggression since October 2023. Despite mediation efforts, the suffering continues. Algeria renews its call for international support for a ceasefire and firmly rejects any plans for the forced displacement of Gaza's population, viewing it as a threat to the Palestinian national project.
The Zionist occupation continues its aggression on the city of Tulkarem and its camp for the 31st consecutive day, and on Nour al-Shams camp for the 18th day, amid military reinforcements and demolition notices for homes. According to Palestinian news agency, occupation forces raided homes in the Jabal al-Salihin neighborhood of Nour al-Shams camp after blowing up their doors and forced families to leave their homes at gunpoint. The media committee in the Jenin camp reported that 27 martyrs have been brought to Jenin hospitals due to the ongoing Zionist aggression on the camp over the past 37 days. In a statement on Wednesday, the committee clarified that most of the victims of the occupation's assault on Jenin and its camp are children, women, and members of the same families, in addition to the displacement of thousands of Palestinians to neighboring provinces. And participants in the UN Human Rights Council Symposium in Geneva titled Environment and Alternative Energy in Occupied Western Sahara called for stronger international oversight to protect Sahrawi rights and resources to end their exploitation by the Moroccan occupation. Marwa Belawar has the report.
The people of Western Sahara are the sole legitimate authority over their land and resources. That was the core message of an international conference by the Geneva Group in support of Western Sahara, attended by ministers, ambassadors, and diplomats worldwide. Discussions centered on Morocco's ongoing occupation of Western Sahara, with experts condemning repression, human rights violations, and resource exploitation. Speakers condemned the complicity of certain states in supporting the occupation and emphasized the European Court of Justice's ruling as a legal turning point.
The exploitation of Western Sahara's resources is not merely an economic issue. It is a clear violation of international law and the rights of the Sahrawi people. The right to self-determination is only legitimate if it reflects the free and genuine will of the Sahrawi people, not that of the Moroccan settlers who have been transferred to the territory, the sole party entitled to determine the region's future and benefit from its resources as the Sahrawi people alone.
A key issue was the forced seizure of Sahrawi land, handed to Moroccan settlers and foreign firms. Experts compared Western Sahara's situation to occupied Palestine, stressing Morocco's lack of legal rights over the region's resources. The conference highlighted the worsening plight of Sahrawi civilians under Moroccan occupation, with human rights advocates warning of ongoing abuses, land expropriation, and violent crackdowns.
This agreement is typical of many other agreements which are entered into bilaterally between states and different states and Morocco, and which would in a similar way be in direct contravention of international law. Occupation has fostered an environment in which severe human rights violations are a daily reality. And one of the recent cases, there's a number of cases brought before different UN bodies. It includes, you mentioned the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention.
Morocco is accused of expanding settlements and exploiting resources to fabricate false legitimacy over Western Sahara. However, international treaties and UN resolutions still recognize Western Sahara as Africa's last colony, keeping its future on the global agenda.
The Polisario Front condemned France's support for Morocco's expansionist policies, accusing it of persistently acting as a sponsor and protector of these actions. It described this as a blatant violation of international legitimacy and a contradiction of France's claimed commitment to human rights, freedom, democracy, and justice. The Polisario also called on Spain, as the administering power of the region, to fulfill its responsibilities toward the Sahrawi people and to remain committed to completing the decolonization of Western Sahara. It also warned of the destabilizing impact of Moroccan occupation practices in the region. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune inaugurated the Koudiet Draouesh seawater desalination plant in the Tarif province, eastern Algeria, on Wednesday. The plant has a production capacity of 300 million liters per day. The inauguration ceremony was attended by Army General Said Shingriha, Minister of Energy and Mines Mohamed Arqab, Minister of Interior Ibrahim Merad, Minister of Water Resources Taha Derbel, and officials from the contracting companies. And after listening to two technical presentations on various technical and engineering aspects of the project, President Tebboune praised the efforts of everyone involved in the completion of the vital project, expressing his gratitude to all executives, workers, and engineers who contributed to the realization of these massive projects.
تشكرات كل التشكرات اللي تقدمت بها عن جدارة يعني يستحقوها العاملات والعمال والتقنيين والإطارات الساميين والمسؤولين على هذه المشاريع. أذكر ما بينهم السيد وزير الدولة وزير الطاقة والسيد وزير الري والسيد المدير العام لسوناتراك وكل من شارك من بعيد أو من قريب بالكثير أو بالقليل في إنجاز هذه المشاريع العملاقة. مثل ما قلت يعني مشاريع اللي هي كلها شرف للجزائر المنتصرة اليوم.
President Tebboune confirmed that with the completion of the remaining two projects in Béjaïa and Boumerdes soon, the network of water desalination plants in Algeria will be completed from the far east to the far west of the country.
أن نتمم برنامج كله بتدشين كذلك نتاع الكابجينات في بومرداس، ثم مشروع بجاية إن شاء الله، وتكون الحلقة اختتمت من أقصى الغرب إلى أقصى الشرق مرورا بالوسط. إن شاء الله الناس اللي شاركوا هذا تبقى في التاريخ.
From the Kuded-Drawish desalination plant, President Abdelmajid Tebboune expressed his pride in the excellent coordination among the workers and executives who made this historic achievement possible.
وفخور جدا 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 لأن الانسجام اللي موجود بين كل الإطارات القيادية والعمال والناس اللي يشتغلوا في ظروف صعبة جدا بدون ما يتخلوا على التنسيق المحكم للوصول إلى هذه المشاريع. إن شاء الله نتمنى مشاريع ضخمة أخرى لبلادنا، هذه التنمية. ثم درنا وهران الجزائر والطرف 1 2 3 هذا هو.
During the inauguration of the third largest seawater desalination plant in the Tarif province, eastern Algeria, President Abdelmajid Tebboune announced that new desalination projects would be launched next year to cover 62% of the country's needs outside of groundwater resources.
متفاهمين 2026 إن شاء الله ونلونس 5 ou 6.
On les 6 هذوك اللي قرروا considérer.
Pour arriver à un taux de couverture de 62%. اور ناق فرياتيك اور غير التحليه ديجا 62%. السطحيه تاعنا ان شاء الله.
The CEO of the Algerian Industrial Projects Company, Tariq Nouizi, confirmed the successful completion of the Tarif seawater desalination plant in under 26 months, achieved through Algerian expertise and workforce.
وفقنا الله لنشهد اليوم تدشين.
Today, we witnessed the presidential inauguration of Kuded-Drawish seawater desalination plant in Al Tarf. This massive facility, with a capacity of 300,000 cubic meters, equivalent to 300 milliliters per day, will meet the needs of 3 million citizens across 4 provinces: Al Tarf, Annaba, Galma, and Skikda. This monumental project was completed in a remarkable short time frame of just 26 months, whereas similar plants used to take at least 36 months. Thanks to Algerian expertise and dedication, we successfully met this challenge in record time.
And Algeria has announced its accession to the Global Multilateral Alliance for Social Justice. In a speech during a dual celebration marking the 69th anniversary of the General Union of Algerian Workers and the 54th anniversary of the nationalization of hydrocarbons, Algerian Minister of Labor Faisal Ben Taleb emphasized Algeria's commitment to actively contributing to global and African efforts to promote social justice.
On this occasion, I'm pleased to announce before all of you the accession of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria to the Multilateral Alliance for Social Justice. This step reflects my country's deep conviction in the importance of international cooperation to address common challenges and build more just and inclusive societies.
The Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled in favor of the Union of Algeria in its case against the Confederation of African Football and Moroccan club RS Berkane. The case dates back to the previous season when USM Alger withdrew from the CAF Confederation Cup semi-final against RS Berkane, protesting the Moroccan team's use of a shirt with a political symbol, which the Algerian club argued violated CAF's ban on mixing politics with sports. CAS annulled CAF's decision, allowing RS Berkane to wear the shirt, stressing that political symbols violate sports regulations. The ruling is seen as a victory for fair play and respect for competition rules. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thank you for watching and have a great night.